Alrighty, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of my Ulf 14 Nerdiness. And as I promised last time, we have a special guest. We have Eric all the way from Sweden. How you doing, Eric?
Yes, I'm doing very well. How are you doing, Nick?
Oh, it's a great day. I am glad that we finally got away from some quizzes for a while. That last couple, I don't do nearly as good as what I hope I would do. Um, Maybe the random quizzes are not my cup of tea, and I need to actually pick some out that I might be able to do, make me look a little smarter.
Yeah.
But we've got some fun stuff to do today. We decided we'd talk a little bit because we both are into Dungeons and Dragons, so we're going to talk about that for a bit. Our history D&D with D&D, DMing, playing, and that sort of thing. And then we've also decided since he doesn't speak English as first language, and I definitely don't speak Swedish at all. We're going to try to do some pronunciation of some words, some tongue twisters, and then Miss Sarah decided she wanted to throw some words at us that she wanted us both to try to say. So we're going to give it a shot and see where we go from there. But let's start with Dungeons and Dragons. How long have you been playing or interested in it? What's up there?
There's been a period, sort of a pause where I haven't really played. So I started to play when I was in university, and if I would have to guess, I think it would be either 2012 or 2013. I think I lean more toward 2013. There was a guy in my class who introduced me to it, and we sort of played pretty zealously for maybe a year perhaps, and he started out being sort of the DM, and it took maybe a few months of playing, and we played through his campaign. And the guy said, like, look, guys, I would like to be a player now. Like, I've been DMing my whole life, more or less, so I want to be a player. And I volunteered to be the DM instead, because I realized that when I had 3 characters at once in his campaign, I realized that maybe it would be a better fit for me to be a dungeon master instead. It's like I like to create characters, and you get to create a lot of characters when you're a dungeon master, of course. So we maybe played maybe in total, so sort of a consecutive period. It was maybe 2 or 3 years. Then I had a long break, and now I've just recently started to play again with some guys digitally.
Awesome. So we just started back up recently with the AFA and the gaming group. And with the South Africa, that's when you picked it back up recently. You hadn't been doing it at all since then.
No, right. I had tried to play, so it wasn't D&D. It was the tabletop game ErMahGerd that I tried to start to play with my wife, but it was sort of a difficult thing to do. So she was so first of all, she has never played tabletop role-playing games before, and she has had sort of a difficulty getting into actual role-playing, so it was a bit weird to play just me and her, and also with a sort of system that I'm not familiar with. So yeah, this is it's going on a month now at least that we've been playing together with people from South Africa and from Europe, so that has been a lot of fun.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I hadn't heard of Mythrogs until I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, and I haven't got it yet. I need to get it and look into it. I know since it was designed by somebody who runs in a lot of our circles, it's definitely something that I want to get. I want to try out. But no, I guess I started in D&D quite a bit earlier than you. I guess because I assume we're around the same age in our early 30s, and I started probably 6th, 7th grade. I know I had some friends that were into it. We were all kind of nerdy anyway, going through that typical, I want to call it middle school goth phase, and black trench coats and everything. It was a good time. And we went over to a friend's house and we stayed up all night, like 12 hours straight playing D&D. And it was the first time I'd ever played. And then we tried it again at school during lunch, and we didn't have any rule book. And the first time I did it, we had rule books and character sheets and all of that. And they had played for years. And then we tried it at school with another group of friends, and we kind of didn't really know what we were doing because I'd only played once. They'd never really played. But we had like just the regular D6s, 6-sided die, and pieces of paper, and we kind of just made everything up as we were going along. Oh, and then you probably fast forward till college, probably like 2010. Yeah. And I got to play in with a group of people, and we were also playing. We would do actually like 36-hour straight sessions on the weekends. We'd stop in the middle and like go to the gas station and take like and buy like caffeine pills and energy drinks, and then make sure and we'd crash for a day afterwards. But it was so fun. We did that for 6-8 months, about every other weekend. And then you got another long break. And then I picked it back up. I decided, you know what? I'd never DM'd before. So I decided I wanted to do that. And I spent a good 6 months just reading on D&D and catching up with the rule books. Because I've bounced around a bunch. I've played, I think the first time I played was like D&D 3.0. And then I played Pathfinder, which is a knockoff by Paizo based on 3.5's rules, and then kind of morphed a little bit. I played a lot of that for years, and then decided to move into, I kind of skipped 4.0 and moved into 5.0. I know you guys are playing, what, 3.5 rules right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun. I haven't played much, or any 3.5, I don't think. I think I skipped from 3.0 to Pathfinder. But Pathfinder's based on 3.5, so I bet I would really enjoy that too. But 5.0, I don't mind so much, other than there's I think a lack of rules in some points. But I played a lot of that for a couple years. That's what I was DMing most recently. It's probably been a year, though. Right about the time I took up leadership in the AFA, I ran out of free time. And yeah. But I DM'd for a group of 4 or 5 people for about a year. And for most of that, I was also playing as a player. Who was also doing 3.5. One of my players was DMing with me and the rest of the players. So we were the same group, just playing basically 2 games a week with different DMs. And that was pretty fun. But I have not got back into it in about a year. On the lack of free time. I know as a player, it's a lot easier because, you don't need all that prep. But, it is, especially with my neuroses, I'm normally reading and researching and coming up with all kinds of things for hours every session. And some of it may never get used. I may be planning for 10 sessions off, but it doesn't really matter because, at that point, it's part of the fun is the research. So what are some of do you have any like pet peeves or anything or any styles of play that you like or don't like or anything like that?
Well, I'm sort of picking up that we might come from sort of 2 different extremes, maybe, or maybe we're not really extremes, but from like 2 sides of the spectrum. So I would like to do more actual planning when I DM, but it usually ends up with me only having like a very bare bones sort of idea of what we're going to do, and I wing a lot. And it's sort of in my character. I'm very much not a planner. I'm very much a heavy-duty procrastinator, so I end up in situations where I have to wing stuff. So for me,
that's why I get your articles at the last minute. No, I'm joking. You actually
yeah.
you put in like 4 or 5 articles, and you're good.
That's good to hear. No, but so I would say that I would carry. Obviously, I haven't been a player in my own games. I'm always only the DM of my games, but I would describe myself. My sort of style as a DM is that I am very loose and fluid with the rules. That if I don't, so oftentimes I don't know what a rule, like a specific rule for a specific encounter, and I sort of just say like, oh, but this sounds reasonable, so we'll do it this way this time, and it might change to the next session. And sometimes I will say, well, that we don't really care about that rule because that sounds epic or that sounds cool or that's a cool idea, so we don't really care about that. I'm not going to have you weigh each individual coin that you're carrying in your backpack to see if you're overburdened or not, but I'm not going to let you like haul around like a city's worth of gear. So I sort of have this loose, fluid way with rules, and that works when the players are into that as well. But I haven't really played with a proper rules lawyer before, I think. So I think they might have a difficult time with my style of gaming, perhaps. But we don't have anyone like that in our group right now, so that it works out very well.
Well, I mean, it's definitely good when everybody can be copacetic and be on the same page about it. I don't think, even though I like to think when I'm up to date and when I'm in that mode, like right now, I would be crazy rusty, but I like to think I know pretty much all the rules. But at the same time, I don't have a problem with homebrewing and changing the rules. Normally, I like even when I'm getting ready to start a campaign with a group, I'll have a list of 10 or 12 homebrewed rules that where I've changed rules or added stuff in. And then I do allow the rule of cool a lot, where, like you said, that sounds epic, so let's just do it anyway. Or if there's something that's not a rule, maybe figure out what we could make up for a mechanic for it at the time. So I think I'm a bit of, I can be flexible, and if something's cool, let's do it. But at the same time, I like some structure. Definitely. But that's one of those things is rules lawyers, especially if that's all they're ever talking about, and if they're not into that, and that's one of those things where you have to, I think, set the expectations at the beginning. A lot of people call it session zero, where you just get together without playing and you just chit chat about how you play, what you play. That's generally the time, when people would start throwing around their character ideas or working on their character sheets or bringing to the table what they wanted to play, because you want to make sure you don't have, a table of 5 elfish rogues, or maybe you do want a team of all rogues. That could definitely be its own campaign in of itself. I mean, at that time, you're going to have lots of strengths and weaknesses, and you want to balance that. Because the rogues, just to talk about, they can have different specializations, whether it be your archetypes in the game or just in general by stats, whether it be charisma, one's real suave and debonair, or sneaky, or one just really good at picking locks. You could do an Ocean's 12, Ocean's 11 type thing. That'd be fun. A bunch of thieves.
Yeah, and I think for our group in particular, so we had been having just these team calls for like a month or several weeks in advance, and we were having a good time just chit chatting with each other, and the hours were just passing like nothing. And then I don't remember who, but it was one of the South African people, Tam, who mentioned that that she liked to do tabletop role playing games and stuff. And then I mentioned that I was also into that, and I put out the idea that maybe we could do some sessions together, and she was all for it. And then we managed to get some other people on board, and you sort of start off with a very solid foundation that everyone gets along, and we sort of have the same idea of what makes a good time. And like I said, we don't really have any rule lawyers, and everyone is like, I mean, if the DM says something, i.e. me, if I say something, that is law. It doesn't matter if it contradicts an earlier session or whatever. Like I am the one that dictates that, and no one questions that. So it makes it for a much easier, more smooth experience, because I care about the players having a good time, and they trust me enough that they think that I will be able to provide that good time if they just don't complain about my style, sort of. So it just works out for everyone in the end.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I do think that is one of those things that I do like, is when you're playing with people that you can, because you talk with them afterwards, beforewards, make sure, hey, what do we like, what we didn't like, was it fun, because in the end, we're spending 2, 3, 4 hours doing this in our busy lives. We want to make sure it's fun, and it does not a struggle to get through. It's a game. It's not real life or something like that.
No, yeah, that is really important, because as adults, life time is precious, really. So I've sort of dreaded a few times, like last session that we had. I haven't done a write up about that yet, but last session we didn't have any combat, and I was sort of afraid because I had an encounter planned, but I realized that it was going to take us over like 4 or 5 hour mark, and the people in South Africa are an hour ahead, so it would like take them into past midnight. So I was like, okay, we're going to end this session now. We haven't had any combat. We had a great time just role playing and interacting with characters, and the Norwegian member Roger, he spent the entire session trying to bring a barrel filled with fermented fish back to the farmstead, and he had such a difficult time getting it there because he kept failing his strength checks. And then the barbarian tried to help him, and he also failed his strength checks. So it was pretty fun, but he desperately wanted that barrel of fermented fish brought to the farm.
That sounds like a Norwegian, I'd imagine. Yeah.
Yes.
And it's always funny, and those are the great moments, I think, in D&D, because you think, how hard is it to move a barrel, or especially for your stereotypical barbarian, moving a barrel is crazy. But I love sometimes the dice and fate just does not go your way, and it makes for some hilarious moments. I was watching a group of YouTubers that stream D&D, and they have this running joke of doors, that anytime a door's locked, or even if a door's not locked, but they think it's locked, how hard it is for them to open it. The thief can't pick the lock. The barbarian rolls a nat 20 to bust it down. And the bard tries this and that. And it takes, 5 or 6, 7 skill checks. And it turns out at the end the door was unlocked, or they just don't make it in and they go walking away dejected. And sometimes failure is hilarious.
Yeah, oftentimes failure is hilarious.
Yeah, and that's one of those things is, and I was one of those DMs that, or I'll say was, because I haven't DM'd in almost a year. Like when it does come to combat or anything like that, versus like your standard role play, and even as a player, I didn't mind shopping sessions or whatever. The whole session's nothing but us going store to store, shopping, talking with the shopkeepers, because a lot of times there's some very interesting people, and especially your regular NPCs, if you're not going to run into them again, or even if you are, that's a great time to make some of your most bizarre characters, those goofy people who have like an interesting quirk about them. I remember like jokes I read the other day, something about they walk into the shop and they see this 3 foot tall man standing behind the counter, like dusting or whatever, and he's like, "Oi, dwarf, come here!" And the guy walks up to him and he's like, "I'm not a dwarf. I'm just a little person." And I'm just like, it's hilarious because in D&D world, we don't think of, I don't know what the PC term is, but we don't think of human midgets just being a thing in D&D. They're all dwarfs with long beards and living underground and mining for a living. But that juxtaposition sometimes, and what is the word? Subverting expectations can be quite fun.
Yeah, I actually did that this last session. I sent in some inquisitors. So I made my own sort of game world, and I have these inquisitors, and they're supposed to be the bad guys. They're part of this religious order that is persecuting the native religion. and I had 3 of them, and I had named them, and you can see the names by hovering over the names through the tabletop simulator that we use, and I had named them like Gunnar the Kind and Ragnar the Small, and I can't remember the third one, and Tam, the South African woman, she said immediately like, "Oh no, this is one of those things like Ragnar the Small is actually like Ragnar the Giant." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right. He's like 6'5", so you're correct." I like that sort of stuff where you subvert expectations. That's sort of funny.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I just think about all of these things like even nicknames in real life. Like I know for a while I had some friends call me too tall, and I'm 6'1", so I'm not crazy tall. And then like my brother is 6'5", and he's always been quite the big chunky boy. And they called him Jumbo Keg or anything. Like nicknames are fun because at least for us they made sense, I guess. But you think of like, I don't know, stereotypical mobster. That's what I'm thinking of is like um, the whole too tall, or you said the kind or the tall, and I'm thinking here like what's it called? I don't know. I can think of names like Bubba or Johnny Two Fingers, or and you're like 2 fingers, and then he holds his hands up and he's got all 10. What the heck does that mean? Or and turns out he cuts off 2 fingers from the people he kills, or who knows? All these little inside jokes that you can make up about it.
In a sense, it's like a little riddle that you sort of put the attached to the character, so the character is more interesting because there's this little mystery that you need to solve, like a mini mystery.
Absolutely, and there's all kinds of ways to do that. Let's see here. So when you were playing, did you ever have any like your favorite characters that you ever played as, or is there any ones that you played for a long time?
Yeah, the one that played for the longest, I think that might have been my let's see, I think it was my 4th character, I think. So I bought this supplemental sort of book, and it was a book with psionic characters.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And so this is in 3.5. That's the system that I played most in. And I made a psionic warrior, so he's pretty. It's a pretty meaty character. It's sort of like a fighter, but he also has spellcasting, like psionic powers. And then I can't remember. I've been trying to find the feat, but there was a feat that gave me a psionic power from one of the more pure psionic classes, and this power was energy ray, and it's this crazy power. So I think you start out with like 2d6s for damage. It's a ranged touch attack, and you get an additional d6 with each level that you get, and you can empower that the energy ray by spending a turn concentrating, so you can make it even more powerful. And here I am able to wear plate armor, and I have a ton of HP, super high AC, and I'm walking around shooting lasers at creatures and one-shotting them. So that was a lot of fun. That was a crazy character.
And I can even remember I'm assuming 3.5 probably worked a little bit like Pathfinder.
Yeah.
Whereas touch attacks ignored the armor AC. So I know
it does in 3.5 as well. Yeah.
So that makes it even easier to hit people with it.
Yeah, the only thing was that is because it's a touch attack, so you then get to add, I think it was, you get to add your dexterity modifier to the roll. But he had a pretty low dexterity, like that was one of his dumb stats. So he would shoot these incredibly powerful lasers, but he would miss all the time. And he would like shoot out walls and shoot out ceilings when he's trying to aim with his laser. So it made it even more fun because he was such a powerhouse, but he could never hit anything. He's just shooting lasers all over the place, not doing anything really.
I mean, to be fair, I always did like to kind of try to min-max my characters and make sure everything's strong. But sometimes those characters who do have that dump stat or that one thing they're just bad at, especially if it's something they like doing, can
Yeah.
make for some hilarious stuff. You think of, I don't know, the barbarian, because one of the weird things or the strange things a lot of times is depending on the system, and I know 3.5 doesn't have any rules as written, or not 3.5, but 5.0 doesn't have any rules as written about intimidation being strength based. So when you get a barbarian trying to intimidate somebody in 5.0, unless it's homebrewed, they have to use their charisma. And that
Oh.
may be a dump stat. Whereas you think if a barbarian's trying to intimidate somebody, they're doing it because they're big and strong and muscly and mean. They're doing it based on their strength. And I know a lot of DMs would homebrew that they can do that. But so if you get a barbarian and it's not like that, if they've got an 8 in charisma, they got a -1 to their intimidation or whatever, they're going to suck at it. And it's hilarious because it reminds me of, what is it? I don't know. All the time when you get like little kids or whatever that think they're tough and they want to badmouth you, and you're just like, put your hand out on their forehead, they're swinging their fists. They're not mean. You're not scared of them. But you got this, big bodybuilder swinging a great axe, and he intimidates you, and you're just like, you're funny.
Well, that's also like you can sort of play to that, of course, that you have this super buff barbarian that is not able to intimidate the smallest little church mouse. But then also, if you want to homebrew it, so easy to do that and sort of adapt the rules according to how you want to play the game. And I think it's one of the great strengths about playing a tabletop role-playing game is that the rules don't define your game. Like you define the rules, sort of. The rules are sort of there and provide a bare bone sort of environment in which you interact. But then it's ultimately up to the players and the DM sort of be agreeing over changing rules and things like instead of having the rules. Having the players be for the rules, you have the rules being for the players, I suppose.
Absolutely. And it is a prime example. And you mentioned another one that I know DMs a lot of times will ignore with coins for carry weight. Because if you look at the rules about how much those coins weigh, and then you think about how much, especially later on in levels, how much money a lot of characters have, they wouldn't even be able to carry all their money, let alone all of their gear as well. It's one of those things where it's a frequent homebrew, and there's some things rules lawyers want to be okay with, and a lot of times I see that one. But you have to, and that's why I always liked with the charisma, intimidation, strength dilemma. I look at intimidation specifically with what skill it involves or what stat it involves. It depends. If you're that barbarian that's going up trying to intimidate using a mean voice, threatening violence on them, that's obviously strength. But if you're like this rogue or this bard or this suave debonair character and you're going up to him and you're just whispering in his ear about how you're going to torture him or you're going to find his mother or whatever, that may be more charisma based because it's about the word choice and how you hold yourself and present yourself. You're not trying to strong arm him. You're trying to incite fear using your words instead of your actions. So it makes sense to be charisma at that point.
You're right, and I mean, if you're going to use your sort of strength, your muscle to intimidate someone, then the person needs to be able to see you. What if you're trying to intimidate someone through a door or whatever, and they can't see that you're tall? They might be able to or tall and strong. They might be able to tell where the voice is coming. If it's coming up from the top of the door, like, oh, this is maybe a very large muscular man, but other than that, they can't really tell.
Absolutely, I think and behind the door works perfectly. If somebody's walking up and they hear you talking and they hear this ethereal voice telling them do not enter or whatever, I can even hear them say, we have a strong army behind us and we're going to strike you down if you come in, blah 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 blah. It's charisma in my mind, because you have to be able to sell what you're saying. And if the PCs can hear that your voice is shaking while you're saying it, then you definitely don't have the charisma to be pulling off that intimidation. Or if you've got some, I imagine, I just keep thinking of like a squeaky mouse voice. Or, you think, I know there are some roll top or some versions of RPGs that do have characters that are mice or that are fairies. And you think about these small little characters, if they got a rapier or a bow and arrow, they're stabbing you with a toothpick for like a medium-sized character or bigger. So if this little mouse walking on two legs is trying to poke me with his toothpick, I don't freaking care. And I've seen some rules, some versions, they might lower it down to a D4 or something like that instead of a normal D8 or D6 or whatever a rapier or a bow and arrow would do. In my mind, I might even lower that down to that's a D0. Like, you don't do any damage to this big character no matter what you do. So they'd have to rely on, like poison or magic. Sure, you could poke him with your toothpick and you broke the skin, but it didn't do anything to him. Because to me, and what HP is your health points. If I, get a paper cut, which is basically the equivalent of stabbing me with a toothpick, I'm not going to die. I'm not any closer to death. It's not, if I have 8 hit points, or what, a commoner has 4 hit points?
Or so a wizard or something.
Stabbing me with a toothpick has a 1 in 4 chance to just kill me? No. It does 0 damage, even if I'm bleeding. But if it's poisoned, and that could be like a paper cut, you get infected, then maybe if that infection's bad enough, it could kill me. But there's all kinds of rules that you have to be able to go wishy-washy with sometimes.
It's actually funny that you mentioned it with playing small characters. I actually have a role-playing game, like a book, a soft cover. It's a Swedish one, and you there in that game you actually play as like small wildlife critters. You play as mice and moles and hedgehogs and squirrels and frogs and stuff. That was actually pretty funny. So that's what they fight with. They have like little. You can have like a Coca-Cola cap as a shield, or you have like a sewing needle as a long sword or rapier or whatever, and then you have to fight an owl or a weasel or something like that. That was actually pretty fun. I played with I've played for a few sessions. It's more geared towards playing with children, but obviously it works with adults as well.
I booked a Kickstarter a couple years ago that was very similar to that. Do you remember what it was called?
I mean, it's a Swedish name. It's Tassar och Morrhår.
Okay.
Paws and whiskers.
What was it?
Paws and whiskers. Tassar och Morrhår.
Okay. I don't think the paws and whiskers would have been it. Probably just somebody did a game, because I think the one I did was based in America or based in English. It wasn't like a translation, the one I backed. But it was a very similar thing. But I think in mine it was less, because yours sounds much more like realistic with the sewing needles and the, Coca-Cola bottles and all that. Mine was more just anthropomorphic, but they're, using like their actual knights and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a degree of anthropomorphism. Obviously, a mouse can't really hold a sewing needle. Really, I haven't seen a mouse do that, at least. But it was sort of there was an element of anthropomorphism.
Yeah, I think mine was it was definitely a different one, and it was a lot more. They were meant to be much more human, like just animals. because and the sizes, because they were using actual swords, they had cultures, and like they built castles and all kinds of stuff. They were just cats and dogs and pigs and horses and whatever.
Yeah, that sounds a bit more. That is a bit more advanced. This was sort of more bare bones. Like I said, it was geared towards children more to sort of get them into that type of activity.
Yeah, mine was more like the Teenage Mutant Turtles version of anthropomorphic animals versus whatever. Only thing popping in my head is like Peppa the Pig, but I think that's even more advanced than Coke.
Yeah, I mean, one of my players, he was a frog, and he attempted to kill a sleeping hunter in the forest by jumping on the trigger to the shotgun that was next to him. I was like, no, I don't allow that. I might have done that if it was today, but I was a bit more. I was immature ways back, so I didn't like the players taking too many liberties.
I'm sitting here thinking, because I mean, you can probably see over, or I guess it'd be over this shoulder. There's quite a bit of guns over there, and I'm sitting here thinking, depending on the weight of the trigger, a frog might be able to jump on it and make it go off. It would depend. Certain guns are going to have heavier triggers. You just ruled that it was too heavy of a trigger. That's fine. Yeah, frog's not going to know beforehand, so yeah.
Although, to be fair to the guy, he didn't explicitly say that I'm going to jump on the trigger and blow the guy's head off. He just said, I'm going to attempt to jump on the trigger. And I was like, no, I can see where this is going. We're not doing that.
Yeah. But, so we've got a few other things we wanted to do today. We'll probably circle back, have Erik back on, talk some more D&D. Maybe I can get into playing and get some more current stuff going. But we did come up with a few things, since I mentioned earlier us having our first languages being different. And even though I speak a good bit of Italian, and I took a year of German and all kinds of I took Spanish, and I even took Korean for a while, but I dropped it. I don't speak any Swedish. So let's see where it goes. Obviously, your wife likes to joke that your English is better than mine. Let's see how good it is.
Yes, bring it on.
I've got a few words here we'll start with in English and see if you can tell me how they are pronounced. A couple of them are funny. A couple of them are kind of hard. Let's see here. We'll start with one that's near and dear to me because it was my high school mascot. How do you think that would be pronounced?
Colonel. I should be. I have it in my mind. Colonel.
Very good. Colonel. Yes.
There we go.
That is a tricky one because it screws everybody up if they've never seen it or they don't know it. That one you have to be told.
Yeah, I mean, I don't usually see it in text, but I hear it a lot. So I think that's part of why it threw me off.
I was actually watching a YouTube channel the other day, and they had, I watched a couple versions of it. One, they had an American, and one, they had a Brit. And they were sitting there talking with, I think it was a French girl and a German girl and an Italian girl. And they were playing this very same game and guess how to pronounce the American word. And this one showed up, and unfortunately, none of the three of them knew how to pronounce it. So it was a lot funnier doing that. But they're like colonel or whatever, which is what it looks like. So I can't fault them too much. But let's see what we got next. Next one's a little trickier.
Onomatopoeia.
Onomatopoeia?
Yeah.
You might know this word when I tell you, but it is onomatopoeia.
Right. Okay. Oh, okay. I see. Yeah.
An onomatopoeia, a word that's written how it sounds, like woof or I don't know, ribbits or something like that. A lot of animal sounds, or think of the words that you see in comic books, like whoosh,
yeah, bam, smack.
Yeah. And I'm gonna feel really dumb if that's a different word and that's not what an onomatopoeia is, but I'm pretty sure that's.
I mean, I mean, I would like to speak with whoever came up with such a complicated word to explain such a basic thing or such an easy to understand thing.
I'm thinking this is probably a Greek origin word based on the POE. Looks pretty Greek to my eyes. And, America or English like to steal from everybody.
Yep.
So let's see what we got next. We just got a couple of these. Oh, I gave you the wrong thing. Where is the actual? Did I not make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
I mean, you showed one word, but you had the pronunciation sort of there.
Yeah. I don't want you to have the pronunciation, so we're going to skip this next one. And while I go load a slide here, but how do you pronounce this one?
Otorniolaryngologist. I have no idea. These are 2 words. Orthoniolaryngologist. No, I can't.
This one's kind of fun. And this is probably a word that Americans might know, but very few of us have ever probably said it. It is otorhinolaryngologist, which essentially means ear, nose, throat doctor. We mostly call it an ENT, ear, nose, throat.
Yeah, that's much easier.
But otorhinolaryngologist. So let's see here. Yep. Otorhinolaryngologist.
It sounds like a spell.
That's another one that's made up of a bunch of different suffix or prefixes from Latin or Greek. Oto meaning ear, rhino nose, laryngal, which is where your larynx comes from. Okay, so I got the one pulled up for that we did last time. Here's the word without the pronunciation.
Oh,
that's the hard one. I bet these sounds coming together for.
Yeah, I mean, part of the challenge is not knowing what it is. I have no context for it, right?
I guess I can tell you a little bit what it is.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, yeah. Go ahead.
All right, this is kind of like a peninsula. It is actually like when you have a little bitty thin strip of land going out, and normally it connects on both sides, kind of like a bridge. But it's like a land bridge, real thin.
Isthmus. I don't know. That's my best guess. I've never seen isthmus.
The TH is pretty much just there to trick you. It's just isthmus.
Isthmus. Yeah, I mean it rings a bell, but I don't think I've ever seen it in writing.
And I actually think a lot of people probably do pronounce the TH isthmus, but at that point it kind of sounds like you got a lisp. It's kind of funny because it's hard to say lisp if you've got a lisp. All righty. I think the next one I have here, that's the one we already did, otorhinolaryngologist. So this last one, the most controversial one, we're hitting big here. Let's see what we got for this.
Yeah, so you could either say that it's a GIF or it's a GIF. I don't know where I found. I mean, it's not a word that I usually use when I either speak or write, really. So I don't know where I think I would be more in the GIF camp, I think.
Well, as you can see, the dictionary I got it from lists both. Yeah. And this is definitely the controversy. I am firmly in the belief that it is GIF because it is a graphics interface something another. But the G word is graphics, so GIF. But the creator of GIFs says it's GIF. So does that count, or are we using logic? Who knows?
Who knows?
But it's the controversy of the ages.
Yeah, one of the great controversies.
All righty. So next up, we come to tongue twisters, and I figure we'll start with yours. That you brought me for in Swedish. See if either one of us can do them very well. And then we'll go on to mine. So here, this first one. Oh, I got to turn off that. Bear with me. There we go. So, as we kind of discussed a little earlier, I don't know how the A with the O or with the little degree symbol, I don't even know what you guys call it. Scandinavian language is really the only ones I've ever seen with that.
Yeah, that might be.
I don't know, but I'm going to say something like ne inte lam. So
Yeah, I mean that is pretty close. So I would say it 444, nej 44 inte 444 lam. So it's does sheep get sheep? No, sheep don't get sheep. Sheep get lamb, sort of. You know,
okay,
like
words.
Yeah. So let's see. So first you have sheep, and then get, and then sheep again, and then no sheep don't. So it gets a bit confusing, but it's like no sheep don't get sheep. Sheep get lamb.
Man.
So the word for it's two different words.
Yeah. Well, that's a lot like the in English we have. I don't know how many times you have to say it, but it is buffalo, 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 and it literally means a complete sentence. And it's just the same word over and over and over again. I'm Googling it right now so I can figure out how many times it is. All right. So throw that up here real quick. And it's possibly the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life. But apparently this is an actual English sentence.
Okay, so buffalo is capitalized at least twice. Well, yeah, twice. So,
3 times precisely, and I think 2 of them. The first one's obviously capitalized because it's the beginning of a sentence.
It's starting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But apparently I left off the punctuation. But whatever. The next 2, I'm assuming, are because of the city Buffalo, which is in New York. So essentially, the sentence employs 3 distinct meanings of the word buffalo. It's an adjective that refers to the place of buffalo. And then it has apparently to buffalo is a verb that means to bully, harass, intimidate, or baffle. And then the noun buffalo. So I'm guessing buffaloes bully buffaloes from Buffalo. Something. And it's ridiculous. And from what I understand, you can actually continue the buffaloes for quite a while, even after. So it is, I would say, quite. I mean, it's very similar in that, the same thing has multiple meanings, but it's why. So now we got another Swedish one here, and this one is a bit more intimidating, I think.
It is intimidating to me too, and I have said it before.
Oh man, because these I want to say the J's are the SJ is like an Y, and I think that's how we kind of did it in the last one. And then we were talking a little bit, and you said the SK in Skåne is an SA, or no, in Skutskjotserskar, which I'm sure I messed up, is an SH. So let's see here. Is it always an SH though? I don't think so.
Well, I don't know.
So I'm not going to get this fast, especially first. Sjulka. Yeah, Sjulka. Sjoman. I don't know.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Sjona. Sjotterskor.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty good. So I would say it. Let's see if I mess this up. 7 sjuka sjömän sköttes av 7 sköna sjuksköterskor. So it's 7 seasick seamen were taken care by 7 beautiful, fair nurses. Is what it says.
And you certainly I understand the stereotype now. So you got a little Swedish chef coming out there, buddy.
Yeah.
Most certainly. Shushukashona, or I'm throwing words from the end into the beginning now. I'm totally skipping now. Shushukashuk. Okay. Shu.
True.
Shoyuka. Shoshuka. Shoman. Skotis av Shuskona. Shukskoterskor. The Shuk. Shoterskor.
Sjuksköterskor.
Sure.
Because I'm from northern Sweden, I have a different SJ sound in sjuk, so that makes it a bit different. So it depends on where you're from in the country, so you will pronounce it in a different manner.
Oh, certainly. And is it Norway or Sweden that has two different like languages that
that's Norway.
is that Norway? Okay.
Yeah.
I know one of them has like the official, and then they have like what did normal people speak as Norwegian, and blah 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 blah. So
you need to speak with Roger, who's also a member, because he obviously he's Norwegian, but as far as I understand it, and I'm sure he will correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. If I understand it correctly, so the one version is the one that is spoken. And then you have the version that is a written form. And from the start, the Norwegians didn't have a written form of their language. And then the Danes came in and were like, this is your written language now. So it's sort of like written Danish. So it doesn't really, really
jump. What I understand with the whole Scandinavian stereotypes, the Danes can't speak properly anyways because they got a potato in their throat.
Yeah, that's right. And I mean, the thing is with Danes also is they're sort of like the French of Scandinavia, that they don't speak English either. So it can make for some very difficult communication.
And that's one of those things. And the French, I totally like to gripe on, which is fun because we just got a new folk builder. When it comes to their language, it's so different. Like I spent 3 months living in Italy. I didn't speak a word of it. I took Latin and a little bit of Spanish before I went, but I didn't know anything in Italian other than grazia and ciao. But by the end of it, parlo italiano perché ho studiato italiano in 3 mesi in Italia. I could actually speak it, and I was probably pretty close to. I knew all the grammar. All I needed to do was keep reading a dictionary, and I would have been fluent. But it's been 8 years since I lived there. But Italian, Spanish, Portuguese, Latin, they're so interchangeable, really. If you speak one, you can definitely read the others pretty easily. And if both people slow down and they're talking, you can communicate pretty easily. You throw French in there, and they don't pronounce anything like the rest of the languages, and they don't spell it anything like them either. They add letters and blah, 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 blah. Have 20 different ways to conjugate a verb. And I've always thought maybe that's the Britain influence, the Germanic influence in France from when it was Gaul. But I don't actually think much of it is. I think it's just they went off and did their own angry French thing. Because I know Romanian, even though it's a Romance language, it does have a lot of influence from the Cyrillic and the Russian and Eastern European bloc, and Hungarian, I think, a good bit. But it's still pretty okay. So it's not as bad as French. French is, Denmark is the France of Scandinavia. That makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, but if you're Scandinavian, like if you're Swedish or Norwegian, you can read Danish. It's just that you can't understand it because it's a crazy situation.
And that sounds about like it. All righty, so let's see what else we got. I got some tongue twisters here for us. Where did they go? I've lost them. There they are. All right, so we're going to start with this one here.
A synonym for cinnamon is a cinnamon synonym. That one is it. That was good.
A synonym for cinnamon is a cinnamon synonym. Yeah, I know. I practiced these a little bit, probably unfairly, before when I was making them. And this one, of all of them, I think this one actually tripped me up the most. Swapping between cinnamon and synonym is very hard. I'm already somebody who can barely say Pacific Ocean because I always want to call it the Pacific Ocean.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to go to the Pacific Ocean. Which ocean? The specific one. Pacific one. Yeah, that one I guess is probably easy, but it did trick me up a bit. Some of these are a little better, I think.
Susie works in a shoe shine shop. Where she shines, she sits, and where she sits, she shines. So yeah, difficult at the end there.
Yeah, Susie works in a shoe shine. Susie works in a shoe shine shop. Where she shines, she sits. Where she shines, she sits. Where she sits, she shines. I was really hoping. Yeah, I knew it would come out. It happened to be a bunch. Where she shines, she sits. She might shit there too, but she definitely shines.
Yeah. That one was good. I like that one. Which wristwatches are Swiss wristwatches? Oh, wow. I managed that one.
I'm mad because I did some Googling, and I may or may not have Googled letters and pronunciations that are hard for a Swede to say. And apparently a lot of people said W's. But your English is, because they said that you want to do a French or a V a lot. You want to do W's and V's, is what I was reading. But I don't know. Apparently not.
Sorry to disappoint.
Yes, very, very disappointing. All righty, bear with me here. I've got to mess with my other computer here real quick, but we'll throw another one out here. It's a little longer for you.
Oh, wow. To sit in solemn silence in a dull, dark dock in a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensation for a short, sharp shock from a cheap and chippy chopper with a big black block. So that one word, I don't know what that word is. Pestilential?
Pestilential.
Pestilential.
You know what pestilence is?
Yeah.
Like one of the, I guess you could call it
a plague or something.
Yeah, 4 Horsemen of the Apocalypse, pestilence. It's just, and I guess an adjectival form of that word. To sit in solemn silence in a dull, dark dock in a pestilential prison with a lifelong lock, awaiting the sensation of a short, sharp shock from a cheap and chippy chopper with a big black block.
That's a really good one. I like that. That's my favorite thus far. Very nice. It's like poetry.
And that's one of those things. I don't think it's too terribly hard to get going. But it's a nice, long, poetic one for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And it's got a lot of words. So maybe I'm thinking maybe one of them would trip you up. Let's see.
English can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though.
Your mastery of the English language is impressive, sir. The
mastery
of our OUGH sound is very tough. You have to know the word in order to and memorize what its sound is. Because as this shows, tough, thorough, thought, though. That's like 3 or 4 different ways to say OUGH. English can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. This makes me think of a different one here. Let's see if I can create this real quick. How do you say this word?
That's a word in English.
It is. Yes. If you pronounce it correctly, it is a word.
I have no idea. Gotti.
Fish.
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 And it's English.
I mean, technically.
Technically.
This is a fun way where we joke about the fact that English is dumb. As we just saw, tough, GH can make an F sound. I can't think off the top of my head of an example where O makes an I sound, but apparently there is one. And then I know there are a lot of examples of TI making a sh sound, like anytime you go in
like inertia
or premonition, rotation. Most words that end in TION. The TI makes a sh. So it's just a joke of those letters in certain words can make the sounds that make it say fish. It's not, no, GHOTI is not an English word, but
Okay.
those sounds make an English word
I
fish.
see. Yeah.
So let's see here. I think, was that the last one we just did? Yeah, English can be understood through tough, thorough thought, though. And really, it takes some tough, thorough thought to remember that it's tough, thorough thought, and though. English is so dumb. Oh, it's what is that joke? English follows other languages into a dark alley and beats them for spare predicates and synonyms. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So last up here, one of our friends, Sarah, decided that she wanted us to try to pronounce some Wisconsin town names. I don't know how hard they are, but of course, I don't have the answers to how to pronounce these. So she's going to have to leave a comment telling us how we did.
Or maybe several comments.
Yeah, or maybe several comments about how horrible we are and how we insulted her national or her state pride. But really, if we pronounce them wrong, that just means, or if she thinks we pronounce them wrong, that just means they're pronouncing them wrong. Because obviously, if we do it, it's correct.
Yep, of course.
All right, let's see what we got here.
That looks like African to me, some sort of African dialect. Sorry, Sarah. That's what it looks like to this ignorant Swede.
I'm going to assume most of these are Native American, actually.
Yeah, no, right. They're Redskins, right?
Yeah.
Mukwanago?
And that's probably where it's going to be. Is it Muck or is it Mook or what? And is it Wanago or Wanago? Based on, I guess I've probably heard Native Americans speaking more, so I'm guessing it's Mukwanago.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever met a Native American in my life. So you have some experience.
Have I? I don't know if I've ever met one in person and talked to them.
Okay.
I saw some running through a gas station the other day when I was up in Iowa, or I guess it'd be a couple months ago. But we hear it all the time on TV and movies and stuff. And I'm sure a lot of that's stereotypes anyway, but who cares? Here we got that one.
Okonomobok.
See, you got the W for the V there. Vuk.
Yeah. Okonomobok. Yeah. That's my...
Okinamalok?
Yeah, that sounds better than mine. Yeah, that sounds it could
this
be.
One's definitely not Native American. This one's gonna be French.
Lake Butte-des-Morts?
Yeah, Lake Butte-des-Morts. I'm assuming if they've anglicized the French or not, I don't know. Because Wisconsin's not really a stereotypically French place. So it might be Lake Butte-des-Morts. Or it might be Lake Butte-des-Morts. I don't know. But it could be Butte-des-Morts or Butte-des-Morts.
Sarah will have to set us straight.
And I'm thinking buttes is like some kind of geographical feature. I can't remember what a butte is. But the dead, I'm guessing is what Morts means.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, I guess. Yeah.
So the Lake of Death. Or I don't know what butte means, but the something of death, that's kind of an interesting, or Lake Valley of Dead, or something like that. Who knows?
A lake valley, a common occurrence in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
Calcana.
Yeah, I'm thinking Cowna. Yeah, it would be even funnier and kind of American if we were to pronounce the KAU in different ways in the same word.
Yeah.
Like Calcona. Like how? Why? All right. We got
Menomonee Falls.
My brain keeps seeing the word anemone. Like a sea anemone. But mononymy, Menominee Falls. But when I see it, I keep thinking of a sea anemone, which I think is kind of like a sea urchin.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, and then we got
Weyawega.
Weyawega. Yeah. All right, Sarah, were you get
Perfect.
How you did? Amazing. 10 for 10, or what do we do? 6 for 6? We're doing good.
Yeah.
Definitely. So we are recorded now for 1 hour and 5 minutes, which is a bit more than I told him a 30. So apparently we talked too much, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But so that is what we had today. So we're gonna wrap this up and maybe see if we can get Erik back on, get some other people back on, have some fun, more talks, because it's probably more interesting than watching me do and fail quizzes 3 episodes in a row. So we'll see, and I thank everybody. And anything else you want to say, Erik?
No, it was a great time, and I hope I'm invited for another round. Hopefully, the pronunciation of the Wisconsin names wasn't so atrocious that I'm never to appear on your channel again.
Well, you never know. I have a whopping, I think, 1 Wisconsin subscriber, so I got a 1 in 5 vote to see if we get you back.
Yeah, that's a high percentage. Yeah, I could be in trouble.
20%, yeah. All righty, everybody. Well, remember to do that YouTube thing, like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you guys around later. Have a good one.
Yeah.